Sorry, I was just chatting to my microbes. Darren, I saw you were chatting to yours too, so that's cool. Right, if you woke up this morning feeling less than human, you would be right, because we're all mostly microbe. There are more microbial cells in and on your body than there are human cells. There are 2 pounds of microbes in your gut alone. Now, we all have our own personalised mix of microbes that we've acquired throughout our lifetime, and whose diversity was built up from birth by interactions with family members and food and pets. Actually, my kids want me to get a dog, so they always tell me I should get a dog because of my microbes. These microbes, they're absolutely essential, though, for our survival. They do things that we cannot. Basically, they digest parts of our diet. They make essential vitamins. They even stop invading pathogens. Now, every day, our human self and our microbial self use molecules as words to have a conversation with each other. So humans evolved in this microbial world, so it shouldn't be surprising that we can speak the same language. Now, sometimes these conversations are slow, such as when the words are molecules in our bloodstream. But they can be fast, such as when the words initiate firing of nerves between our gut and our brain. In fact, our gut is the second most innervated organ in our body after our brain. Some people even call it our second brain. So not a bad place for our 2 pounds of microbes to send and receive signals from. Your gut feelings may just be messages from your gut microbes. So if these conversations turn into expletive-laden yelling matches, the result isn't just a dodgy tummy when you're on holiday, but it can also affect our mood, our cognition, our tolerance to pain, even our ability to focus. Now, the best way to keep a healthy conversation going with your microbes is to do the things your mum always told you to do. Eat more vegetables, get more sleep, and do more exercise. Yeah, who knew mums are always right? The problem for our deployed warfighters is that often they don't have the luxury of doing all or even any of those things. So consequently, their internal dialogue with their microbes can be a little bit off. This results in health issues, but also lowered mood, reduced cognition, reduced pain tolerance, reduced ability to focus, all the things they need to rely on to help complete their mission. So success or failure in the future fight depends not only on who has the best strategies and tactics, but also who has the best microbes. And in our lab, we're looking to identify those best microbes. Diarrhea. Now, diarrhea is the most prevalent health issue affecting our deployed warfighters. Now, unfortunately, that's as true today as it was in medieval times. Records from the 11th century report that diarrhea, typhus, and fever are the 3 great afflictions of armies. Now, over half of our deployed warfighters will be afflicted by diarrhea during their deployment, and the majority of those experience multiple episodes. And chronic GI issues can even persist when they come back to the US. Now, in about 60% of cases, the deployment diarrhea can be attributed to food poisoning bugs. But the rest of cases, there was no known cause, and not everyone in a unit succumbed to it. So could their microbiome be a driving factor? Well, to find out, we looked at the gut microbiomes of deployed warfighters throughout their deployment. It's really hard to look inside someone and see what their microbes are, so we had to take a different route. Now, fortunately, the body has a built-in gut microbe delivery system. Poo. So we collected weekly poo samples from deployed warfighters throughout their 6-month deployment, which is a lot of poo. Now, unfortunately for them, but fortunate for us, some of these warfighters experienced diarrhea during their deployment. So we could compare those that were and were not affected. And we kept seeing that certain microbes were more prevalent in those warfighters that experienced travelers' diarrhea, that were susceptible to diarrhea. And different microbes were more prevalent in the guts of those that were resilient. And this was true regardless of deployment location. So suggesting that there are resilient and susceptible microbiomes. Now, the hardest thing about doing microbiome research is that humans are terrible research subjects. Right? They never stick to the same diet, they don't like to be in the same place all the time, and they all have different activity levels. It's a nightmare. So consequently, we look for a deployed environment where those factors weren't such an issue. And the answer? Submarines. Submarines are a really well-defined environment. A submariner doesn't experience wildly different diets or stresses or environments than their crewmates. And since we're one lab supporting two services, there is no better proxy for manned spaceflight on Earth than a submarine. Limited diet, altered circadian rhythm, stress, poor sleep, lack of ability to exercise, lack of vitamin D. We know all of those things affect our microbes. Now, diarrhea isn't such a problem on a submarine, fortunately, but over a third of the silent service's unplanned losses to the force are because of psychological issues. Some people are just better at coping with being a submariner. So could their microbiomes be a driving factor? Well, to find out, we collected more poo before, during, and after submarine deployments and linked it to mood and cognition data. We saw that certain microbes were more prevalent in those that were experiencing vigor, and different microbes were more prevalent in the gut microbiomes of those experiencing fatigue. Again, suggesting that there are resilient and susceptible microbiomes. So you may be thinking, how is this helping our warfighter? Well, unlike the information contained in our own cells, it is way easier to change who is in the microbiome and what those microbes do. So armed with the knowledge gained by people pooing for science, we can design interventions to promote these resilient microbiomes. Now, the easiest, or one of the ways to change or to promote those resilient microbiomes is to change one's diet. Nutrition is the driving factor to what thrives and survives in our gut. Now, it can be hard to change someone's diet while they're on deployment, but what we found is that the microbes are present before someone deploys, persist and exert their effect during their deployment. So by changing someone's diet before you deploy, you can affect their health and performance while they're on deployment. And we're working with the Army to measure the success of some of these dietary interventions. Another way to promote a resilient microbiome is to add microbes to that conversation. Basically, seed your microbiome with the microbes that are the equivalent of the people you want at your next dinner party. These microbes are known as probiotics, and you may have heard or seen them in your supermarket. They're even present in that yogurt there. The key is to determine which microbes provide the benefits you want to promote warfighter resiliency, and we think we have some candidates that will. Now, a way to ensure that the probiotic has the effect that you want is to engineer it to be that reassuring friend that we all need in times of crisis. So we can engineer microbes to keep us on task even when we're tired. And that white powder in that vial is an example of doing just that. And we're planning experiments to test the effectiveness of this engineered microbe in humans. So the conversations we have with our microbial self are a really important part of what makes a resilient and high-performing warfighter. And we're well on the way to understanding how those conversations work and how to make them better. But until then, I'm going to continue to chat to my microbes by finishing my lunch. Cheers.